Welcome to Every Trait, the pro-biopunk philosophy channel. You may call me ZJ for now, and we are still in phase 1, biology and pop culture. For this briefer video, we're going to talk about Mass Effect. Now, full disclosure, never played the remaster, I only played the originals. So hopefully none of this lore has changed. But we're going to talk about the bad biology in Mass Effect, and also we're going to talk about why humanity's extinction would probably be guaranteed, even with no Reapers, or death, or hostile aliens of any kind. So first, I'm going to give you some examples of bad biology. First, we're going to talk about Krogans. So they have an incredibly high life expectancy, and the reason for this is because they're from a really harsh planet, and with very, very violent. And so in order to survive, they had to have redundant organs and be extremely hardy and grow up really fast. But their average lifespan was rather short because of violence. They would end violently. And so, as I understand it, they wouldn't actually live that long, just a few decades. And when they were taken out of that planet, their lifespan turned out to be like over 1,000 years, in some cases, even some living as high as like almost 1,500, because of just how hardy they are. But that's not how it works. If there's no selective pressure for their cells to survive any longer than, say, 50 years because of all the violence, then there's no reason their organs wouldn't all start to fail after that point. It doesn't matter if you have redundant organs if they all fail at the same time. So no, their lifespan shouldn't be super long. Speaking of which, Solarians. Their lifespan's super short because they have a really high metabolism. But that's not how it works at all. There are birds that have pretty high metabolisms and still live a long time. There are lizards that have really slow metabolisms and still have a really short lifespan. The reason why the correlation exists is because if you're not going to live very long anyway, there's no point in conserving energy, right? But if you have the capacity to live longer, because you're a very intelligent species that can survive most any threat, because you can outthink it, then there actually would be selective pressure for you to live longer and longer and longer, even if you had a high metabolism. The idea here seems to be that you have a limited number of heartbeats or something. If this were true, athletes would be less healthy than people who sit on the couch all day, because their hearts beat faster. So no, you don't have a limited number of heartbeats. There is a general correlation in nature between metabolism and life expectancy, but the writers of Mass Effect got it backwards. They got the cause and effect backwards. So Solarians could live like elves. They could live like 500 years, whatever. There's no reason they couldn't, even with a high metabolism. So long as the selective pressure exists and they can survive to that age reliably, the ones with the mutations that let them live that long will survive, will reproduce at that age, their children will live longer, etc. Another example is Dr. I think the name was Celion. I can't remember the pronunciation. I just looked it up before recording this. He was growing organs in people. Now, I'm not defending him. He was absolutely just a despicable person. This is the pro-biopunk philosophy channel, and he even went too far. Okay, he was definitely a bad guy. But why did he do it? If I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was illegal to clone organs. Why? That's a little weird. And so he did it the way he did it, which was a very horrible way, as sort of a loophole. And this brings me to an important point, which is when you make bioethics laws with no knowledge of biology and no knowledge of ethics, you force people to do very unethical things to get what they need. There were people who needed organs. The way he went about it was absolutely wrong, but was he forced into that position? Why couldn't he just clone them in vats, just individual organs? Why was that illegal? I understand whole bodies, and then cutting them out, that would be horrific. But just bioprinting a heart, why is that illegal? Maybe I'm remembering wrong. Maybe it's not illegal, but it's just something I've thought about. The reason why I actually thought about Dr. Salian is because of course, it's biology and something goes wrong, so it basically makes eyes. If that happened in real life, even 0.1% as much as happens in fiction, the whole world would be over by now. Okay? It's not realistic. Now, why would humanity not make it in Mass Effect? Because of the laws on biomodification. It is legal for humans to modify, to become faster, stronger, basically take the best traits that already exist naturally and put them all in one person. That's legal. That's also eugenics. But adding new traits is illegal. So right away, we have a problem. Remember the roulette example I used in an earlier video. In a real game of roulette, if you bet on just one number, you get a higher payout than if you bet on like all odds. But in the game of survival, where each number represents a different genome and the wheel is representing what the next extinction event is, you can bet on as many numbers as you want with the same cost as you bet on just one and get the same payout. You could bet on all odds instead of betting on just one. It costs the same amount and the payout would be the same. So why would you ever bet on just one, right? It's good to have as much as possible. If people are standardizing, for example, soldiers getting all the best traits for soldiers, and that sort of thing, that would drastically decrease the variation. So now you're betting on, instead of all odds and all evens, now you're just betting on all odds, right? Which means you're less likely to win if the next extinction event is something that you needed the evens to survive. So humanity's already decreasing its ability to survive unpredicted stressors, right? But here's the thing. In real life, the extinction board's a lot bigger than that. It's not just numbers, it's letters and wingdings and everything else because of the amount of diversity that would be needed to survive all possible unpredicted stressors. So forbidding adding new traits is actually a bad thing. With that freedom, the vast majority of people would choose not to use it. So background variation will be maintained. You don't need to do anything to force that to happen. It would just happen. Some freaks on the fringe would increase the variation, which means now we're betting on all numbers and all letters and even symbols on that roulette table for the same cost as if we bet on just one number. And the payout's the same because the payout's survival. So, yeah. The second problem is, as I said in the previous video, alien worlds are alien. And in order to really survive on alien worlds, we probably have to mod. So not being allowed to add new traits means humanity's stuck on Earth forever. Mass Effect kind of gets a pass on this because there are these stations that weren't built by humans that allow you to jump directly from one system to a distant system, but real life doesn't have that, okay? But yeah, without being able to add new traits, we wouldn't be able to survive on the stepping stone worlds needed to find another Earth identical world. And sort of, standardizing traits on Earth for specific roles is going to decrease a lot of variation. And then not allowing adding new traits to compensate for that lost variation, that's bad. That is what we call FE, forced eugenics, and forced bioluminism in the same law. That is an extinction law. That is a law that would lead directly to extinction because over time, what would that do? The amount of numbers you're guessing on the roulette table is decreasing over time. And it can never increase back. You might say, well, what about a natural mutation? Wouldn't that bring it back? Well, no, it wouldn't. Because if you make all new traits illegal, you make all new traits illegal. There's no way to prove it's natural. Any trait that could be mutated naturally could also be created in a lab. So if all new traits are illegal to be added in a lab, then all new traits are illegal, even if they come about naturally, because there's no way to prove it's natural. It's still A, C, T, and G in it. So, yeah, when you make all new traits illegal, you make all new traits illegal, even natural ones. There's no way to prove that they're natural. And this is also the path that humanity is likely on in real life. So that's a bit of a downer. But anyway, what's the thesis of this video? Don't write laws like that into sci-fi. It's bad. You're writing an extinction law, and everyone's acting like it's okay. Anyway, I know these videos are always weird. Thanks for listening to me rant. And I have been ZJ. And remember, always Gmod responsibly. Clicky, 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 clicky.